So this is going to be our first segment, just to have on record. This is going to be our first official segment where we do a weekly review in trending topics, headlines, articles, stories that are all over the internet and or social media. And so I have a list of 4 of them, one of which you brought to my attention at the beginning of the week. So I figured that's where we start. So in this, you know, it's almost funny if you watch how Dave Portnoy got to the pizza review. They're called the pizza reviews. But when he was first doing it, he's like, we're going to do this thing where we go eat pizzas and we review it. So let's call it the pizza review. We're going to do this weekly thing where we talk about headlines, news, and trending topics. So what should it be called?
Good question.
Yeah. Maybe we can get some feedback from our social media following.
Maybe it's One Scoop.
One scoop. Everybody knows the law.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing I wanted to talk about was not only AI, but the advancement of like robots taking over jobs. You know, we always hear it usually around McDonald's or coffee shop. But we're in construction, and you brought to my attention that a company that we know of is implementing robots for the first time. Why don't you unpack that real quick?
That's right. So we just learned that Suffolk Construction, who's currently in the process of working on the new Great Wolf Lodge here in Naples, is actually using an AI dog named Spot on the job site. And what this dog is doing is it's able to walk the corridors and really inspect quality control a lot quicker than a job super might be able to do. It's also taking and using certain algorithms for scheduling and things of that nature. So it's really kind of an innovative thing to make things much easier.
Okay, so first of all, I didn't know there was a name, so that's really good information. Suffolk Construction, just to unpack, is a nationally known company. They're not just a local, home builder. They're a national commercial.
That's right. They built Gillette Stadium.
That's right. I forgot about that. But we've done some projects with them here in Southwest Florida, I believe in Sarasota, and I think, knock on wood, Naples as well, but hopefully another big one in Naples. But that Great Wolf Lodge, it's got the big indoor water park and what have you out near the soccer fields.
Yes.
Is implementing the robotic dog. Now, you said for inspection and scheduling, but is it also being used for carrying of materials? Almost like a glorified wheelbarrow, if you will, but
I have seen where they're using them to carry different,
like bundles of shingles from the truck to the job site.
Right.
So that's helping out on the workers' backs. And so people are saying, well, that's replacing the worker. Well, in an area now where there's a supply and demand of workers, actually it's just filling the void of maybe a more meaningless, not meaningless because they're all meaningful, but if you do have human beings, you can use them in a more productive manner than doing something like that a robotic dog could do.
I don't think I view that as replacing the worker. I view that as preserving the worker.
That's a good, you know what? That's really good. It's preserving his body, his strength, and he could be more effective in other areas of the construction process.
Right.
That's actually a really good. That's an investment.
Yeah. Now, you know my feelings on the AI thing. There's certainly a lot that can go wrong with that. I mean, as with anything. But right now, it's pretty cool, as long as...
I think for during these weekly segments, we should always make one of the 4 or 5 topics one where we can both put tin hats on. I think we have to do that. I think that would be funny.
All right.
What about possibly getting someone from Suffolk Construction to come on the podcast to talk about this? Because
maybe we can get Spot to come on.
That would be unbelievable if we could get a representative for Suffolk Construction on the podcast and possibly bring the AI robotic, I don't even know what we're calling this, the autonomous worker into the podcast. That would be killer.
We got to be careful. I don't want him to show up and fire on us with a roofing nailer.
I mean, if that puts a bump in our social media content, I would take one for the team.
Take a couple nails.
Depends where they're going to shoot it. Yeah. So that's really cool. And that's massive for us because here we're in Naples. AI and robotics, these are very forward-thinking things that all the places in the country that it could have been deployed first happens to be in our area.
Yeah, that's right.
We need
I
to
was
take
gonna
advantage of
mention
that.
I believe that this is the first place in the United States that they're using these dogs to this extent.
I think that's awesome. Little known fact for anybody that's watching this at Suffolk Construction, I believe our parent company, My Shower Door, actually shares part of the advertising wall at Fenway South as
right.
well. So kind of some common ground there, aside from already working with each other in the past. We'd love to help promote what you're doing. We think that's very innovative, super cool, fun to talk about. It's different. It's progressive. And I think that would make for good media. Any other closing arguments on that topic before we move into the next one? I saw a couple other good ones.
No, I mean, I think that's something that we'll constantly be talking about with our tinfoil hats.
Okay. Speaking of tinfoil hats, that will make me go to this next one. No matter what side of the political spectrum you're on when it comes to the January 6th insurrection and the raiding of the Capitol, or whatever words I want to be careful of the words I use on that because I don't want people to think I'm on one side or the other. I want to talk about the video that I showed you that I just happened to see by accident. And what came to my attention was I've spent some time in Washington. You've been through there. And basically anything the federal government does from a construction standpoint is typically, I think what most people would say is over-engineered.
Right.
Like over the top, what the private sector would be used to allowing or doing during their...
I would argue, by the way they construct things, that they are tinfoil conspiracists.
What do you mean?
Well, they over-engineer everything. Like, what if
what if this
happened?
happened? Yeah. And so things are built that way. They're solid. They're big. They're massive. Every aspect, everything, down to the doorknob, everything.
Yeah.
I was watching a YouTube video of people, getting into the Capitol building on January 6th. And in one video, it shows somebody banging on the front door of the Capitol building, and it's laminated glass surrounded in the wood frame. And I mean, and they're fucking banging on this thing with like a metal pole from a gate, and they're kicking it, and you can tell it's laminated. It's doing its job. Nobody's getting through it. Nobody. And then for about a 10-second window, they cut over to another part of the building, and someone like hits one of the windows. And now, again, this is laminated glass. You and I are very familiar with the composition of laminated glass, especially with the Century Glass Plus inner layer, how robust it is. They hit this laminated glass window, and it like starts flapping like a piece of paper. And that stuck out to me as a glass professional, someone who has spent more than half of his life selling, manufacturing, installing glass. It jumped out to me that there's no way in hell that when that building was built, that glass was put into that window that way. There's no, out of all the cheap and bush league things I've seen on job sites, I've never seen something so flimsy like I saw in that Capitol building.
I think a car windshield's stronger than that window there.
No question of a doubt. And people are probably watching that now as we play it over the top of us. And so I'm curious with all the blaming and blah, blah, blah. Let's get into the facts of it. Anybody who's watching this, if you're aware of what the specs are on a building, when they build a building, they allocate certain metals and finishes and materials that meet a certain construction criteria.
On a government building.
On a government building. And I already know that same building had a glass enclosed frame door that people were and couldn't kick in, and they went 20 feet over to another way, and it just pushed in real easy. And so to me, that is a massive red flag, and that would be an area of concern where did somebody change out the window so it was very easy to get into? I think that's what the conspiracy theories would say. But from a glass professional and knowing what the government typically likes to put in its products, those two things didn't fit to me.
Doesn't smell right.
But it hasn't ever brought up one time. So, A, I hope this would shine a light on something and maybe we'd get credit for it. But two, I hope, we don't just disappear either.
I was going to say, in light of this,
I have no
not
intention.
at this time, nor have I ever been suicidal.
I am not suicidal, and I don't have any plans. Things are going very well for me. I just got a health check. I'm doing well. I think you just got your blood work today.
I did.
Anxious to compare our cholesterols and everything, testosterone levels, everything. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear some of the feedback on that. That did smell funny. Maybe shout out Byron Donalds. Maybe you want to look into that. Wink, wink. You can call us in as your forensic engineers, glass professionals.
Yep.
This
Non-paid experts.
Yeah, non-paid. Yeah, we would gladly do this for the exposure only and to help out. That would be our patriotic duty. Something that I have been meaning to get off my chest and get on tape with you is we eat out a lot for lunches and entertaining people.
Right.
And we watch and we study people. We do cold reads on their body language and how people talk and affect. And what big businesses have done with these tipping machines
Oh, God.
everywhere where you're buying something has gotten to the point where it's almost egregious. Like, it's almost extortion. And I say that because if I'm getting food somewhere with, like, there's a barista or, it's a pre-made cold cut and they're turning around, grabbing it and putting it on the table, they don't start doing that work until after the money's paid. But they type it in, sir, it's $13.99, and they spin it around. Now, that transaction's not going any further until I hit, and by the way, 20%, 22.5%, 25%. So the lowest amount, which, by the way, it used to be if you were a really good server and provided excellent service, you would get a 20% tip.
Yeah, 15% was the norm, and 20% was you were a good tipper.
It's starting at 20% and going up from there while I'm standing up and you're standing up. And nobody's cleaning my table. Nobody's giving me napkins. And
well, you know what that also results into is you get a lot of guilt tippers.
Well, this is what I'm getting at. So they're extorting you because I feel like when they turn that around, they're waiting to see what button it is, obviously. And then I feel like, oh, fuck, if I don't do this, what's going to end up in my sandwich that he's grabbing real quick? I'll give him this one because this is the one that's got pubic hair in it. He gave me 25% tip. I'll give him the clean one. That's what goes through my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so only out of fear, because fear is our overriding factor in our decision-making, 25%. Because I don't want the possibility of getting the one with the pubic hair.
Yeah, 100%.
Where do you stand on this? Like, I'm at a point where I want to stand. If I'm ordering something while I'm standing up, I don't want to fucking tip anymore.
Well, here's my thing is 9 times out of 10, I want to hit no tip. But like you said, you feel guilt and you almost feel this overwhelming feeling that you have to explain yourself. Like, listen,
yes,
I'm not tipping you because you didn't fucking do anything.
Yes, or even the attitude, you grunted at me instead of saying hi. You're texting on your phone while I'm giving you my order, and now my minimum is 20% or no tip.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's every day we're being battered with it. So it's not like, oh, I deal with this once a week. It's every day. I was at the airport over the weekend getting fucking peanuts and, gum, and the fucking tip bar came up on that thing. At the airport, I'm buying tchotchkes, a drink, Gatorade, a bag of peanuts, and some gum, and it gave me the option to tip.
So what'd you do?
No tip on that one.
So did you get pubes in your peanuts?
No, I hope not. I mean, no, I didn't. That was unbelievable. Yeah, so the tipping, I want to make a stand. I probably won't do this, but what if I'm standing up and I'm ordering something and then I'm carrying away my food? I'm not tipping.
There's no reason you should.
It's out of control.
Gratuity is paid for service above and beyond. You handing me something that's pre-made or pre-packaged and me paying you, which is the process that needs to happen in any transaction, does not warrant me giving you extra money.
Yeah, I mean, we're not doing that.
You're getting a paycheck from your company.
Could you imagine if our installers, were finishing the heavy glass wine cellar and they said, hey, we got a few more things, but while Dustin and Daniel are caulking, Chris hands them the iPad and says, hey, we need you to go ahead and sign off that the work is complete and, click a few buttons. And they click and it says, do you want to leave a gratuity? 5%, 10%, 15%, on a $30,000 door. Like, I couldn't imagine what the consumer would say. But it doesn't preserve their autonomy. They can get away with it in the short term, but people are eventually going to get pissed off. And you're like, you know what? I'll just start making my fucking coffee at home.
You're right.
I don't like the coffee any better at wherever I stop than I could make at home. Part of me likes the social aspect. I just like being around people. I like, seeing new people. And I don't know. I like doing that. But it's getting to the point where I get so uncomfortable battling with this tip, no tip, when it's definitely not warranted, that it's giving me this fatigue almost. It's exhausting.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, they're making a killing now because of the guilt, but you brought up the point that eventually people are going to just maybe stop going to those establishments. Or
kudos to Seat the Table, by the way. This is not a shameless plug to get Alfie Oakes on our podcast. It's not at all. However, if he wanted to, great. I get the vanilla cappuccino there with almond milk, large. I don't know all those weird names at Starbucks, but it's a large. You put the credit card in, you pull it out, and it says accept it. There's no tipping. They don't even ask for a tip. Now, I would prefer do the charge, regular charge, and a tip jar. If somebody says, oh, you know what? That barista was the most personable, brought a smile to my face, maybe told me a joke, I could tell the workspace is really clean. I got a few extra bucks in the pocket. I'll throw it in there.
Yeah.
I do that when I feel it's warranted. I do it all the time.
Well, that's the way it should be. It should be based on how you feel, not how they're trying to make you feel.
Speaking of which, were you aware that if you go to a Publix and you get good customer service, so like where would that happen? Like when I get a pub sub, and sometimes I got to get it for me and 3 or 4 other people, which I hate doing because I feel like when I go up to the deli and say, I got 4 sandwiches to make, I don't know why, but I feel like they're like, oh, fuck, you got 4? No one's ever casted that judgment, but I feel like that's something that they would be like, shit, I'd rather make 1 or 2 and then be done with it. Because some people take forever. Oh, I want a little bit of this, a little bit more of that. So I try and make it easy. But every now and then I get somebody that makes my pub subs that's super good. Like just excited to be doing it. It's clean. It's quick. They're able to have a conversation, but it's not holding them back from working. If you get a good experience with anybody at Publix and you notify a manager, part of their company policy is when someone gets a referral for doing something above and beyond, Publix as a corporation buys that individual lunch. They give them a card that's a voucher of some sort to get free lunch. And so once I learned that, I was actively looking for it. I'm not throwing up softballs for people to give me good, but if I ask something or I get in a position where I see something that's above and beyond, I will then make sure I go out of my way to tell the manager because I know they're going to get a free lunch out of it. To me, that's cool.
Yeah, that's
especially
great.
Because they don't know it's coming or who it came from. It feels good.
Right, and it's genuine that way too because it's not something stuffed in your face. It's like, oh, that asshole didn't give me anything.
Okay.
Or
it's funny you say that because of that stuffing it in my face. It bothers me every time to the point where I'm eventually not going to go. Conversely, When I've seen that manager go to the person and tell them they got a free lunch voucher, it made me feel so good that I only want to shop there because I'm almost manifesting someone else doing something good because I can't wait to go tell another manager. It actually has the exact opposite effect.
Yeah.
So the first one, the shoving the tip jar in your face, is a short bag. Because eventually people are going to get sick and tired of it and be like, fuck this, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, that's even like, not to carry this on more, but that's even like, for example, when I go to a wedding and it's open bar, right? I'll usually front load and I'll give them, 20, $30, to start off the night. But then if I go back and it's a different bartender, I feel bad.
Oh, I know.
Because I'm like,
I know.
I'm not giving you any more because I just gave you $30, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Back in the day, way more than 7 years ago, because it's been a little while. I've been a good boy since then. But I made it my job when I went to an open bar to make sure that bride and groom was going to get their money's worth. Like, for whatever that open bar cost, I was going to do my part to more than consume whatever allocated amount that bar thought people would drink. They weren't making money off of me.
Just so you're aware, I don't know there's many places where you pay just a flat fee.
Oh, it's not?
It's typically they tally it and
oh, fuck.
the bride and groom have to pay for it. That's the way my wedding was anyways.
I thought I was doing you guys a favor.
That's all right.
I want to try and drink like 1 million drinks.
You were doing us a favor.
I'm not leaving until I'm
lubing
even.
up and getting on the dance floor.
Okay, that is an interesting point. I've been in that situation too. So you feel like you want to do something so good, and now you get there back later and there's someone there and you feel like the complete opposite. You feel like a tool bag. So you're like, I'm not tipping anymore. And the guy's, why are you not tipping anymore? Well, I already paid early. Oh, yeah, that's what everybody says. Yep. I can almost see that happening. One other thing that I saw on, I think it was Google Trends, and this was an interesting statistic. Now, of course, I didn't really dive down into it. You can make statistics in polls look any way you want, right? But this one stood out to me. It said living room concerts. So people that are searching for concerts to watch in their living room over the last week is up 1,300%.
What?
People wanting to watch concerts in their living room. Now, to me, there's really no comparison. Now, I will say I've been more inclined to rather watch a concert in my living room than in person, depending on the venue or who or where it is, only as I'm getting older. And I'm talking only in the last 2 years. There's still certain bands that you just have to see live. Maybe it's outdoor, it's the right setting, and you have to. But I could see the allure of, I remember it wasn't that long ago, I watched, I think it was at your house, it was a 3D video concert of maybe Kenny Chesney or something.
Yes.
And dude, I was locked into that like I was at a show. I didn't move from the couch. I mean, I was into it. You felt immersed into that concert.
The 3D certainly helps, but yeah.
The sound quality was good.
Listen, I'm a big fan of watching concerts at home. You get in a certain mood and do that. What I don't understand is why this week in particular such a jump. What is the catalyst?
Maybe, there are some people who are just pulling that many more people. They said as popular as Michael Jackson was in his prime, they're saying what Taylor Swift is doing is outpacing all the numbers that he had. And, if there was just one concert that someone that large people were interested in watching it through, it could skew that number. Do you know what I'm saying? Like one concert could take those numbers way up.
That's a good point. I mean, I think
it might not be across the board.
I think my 8, soon-to-be 9-year-old daughter probably skewed some of that result herself with the Taylor Swift Eras Tour thing, because I think she's watched it, 57 times a day for the last 3 weeks.
What's the podcast that Andrew Schultz and those guys called, it's like flagrant.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
He was just talking about this Netflix, or it wasn't Netflix. It was HBO Max, talking about there's a documentary on Taylor Swift and maybe her old boy. What was her last boyfriend? She's had a couple, but they show them side by side, and there's some weird kind of cryptic story in this Netflix. And he says, as big as she is in this prime right now, how is her special, which is on HBO Max, not being pushed out to the masses like everything else she does? And he said he watched it, and it was pretty interesting what she was trying to uncover. And he thinks, big media or whoever's in charge of all that is kind of suppressing it, because everything else she's doing with Kelsey, and it's front and center of everything. Even when she's at a football game, the camera's on her more than it is the football game. So the fact that he's saying they're not putting this in all the algorithms and the feeds could be really telling.
Well, yeah, and it's to the point where it's just disgusting how much is out there, being pushed. I just saw something, or heard something, I should say. They're supposedly filming a Hallmark film at Arrowhead Stadium, and it's like a Chiefs love story. I shit you not.
Come on.
I heard this. I swear to God. Obviously, that's got to be based on that relationship, but it's just
the timing. So
how far is too far?
I mean, they're really trying to milk every drop out of that whole scenario. And you know what? Good for them.
Yeah.
I hope that we get to a point where, let's say, us reading these trending topics once a week becomes so big that we're able to produce shorts and reels and get a sponsor for the weekly headlines report. And, I'd milk the shit out of it. So I don't blame them for doing that. I'm
Agreed.
Probably more jealous or envy of it, to be honest with you. But I think no matter what you think about it, it's something that we can learn from, good or bad.
Yep.
For sure. Well, I think that will wrap up this weekly headline report.
Before we go, I got one thing I want to talk about real quick.
Yeah, tell me.
I just saw, so my mother-in-law loves a certain site to online shopping, and this particular site, it's like, you're constantly getting some sort of, God bless her, you're constantly getting some sort of gift from here. Well, I just saw today that I believe it's Missouri's Attorney General. One of the Attorney Generals, I'll have to look it up, is kind of suing this site and putting a halt to it. And the site I'm talking about is, or I used to call it Temu until the Super Bowl reminded us it's Temu.
What is it?
It's basically just a bunch of Chinese shit. Really,
it's like Amazon for just.
It's like Amazon,
a dumping ground for tchotchkes.
It's like dollar store Amazon, right?
And by the way, with inflation, dollar store is now like $1.75.
Yeah, $1.75 store Amazon.
Yeah.
But supposedly, so the reason why I bring this up is they're referring to it as a theft site, and what they mean by that is they're selling these goods at rock bottom prices, not because they're making money doing so, but what they're doing is they're gaining access to your information.
Oh, shit.
And the reason why this sticks out even more to me is because they just so happen to have a couple breaches with different credit cards and things, and I'm sure that had something to do with it. So it kind of brings up an interesting situation with the rise of e-commerce. Like,
e-commerce has only been around for what, 20? I mean,
yeah, but that's all we do now. Like, I don't go shopping. I
100%. But in the infancy of e-commerce, even though we do it, that's what we do 95% of the time. It's still kind of like the Wild Wild West.
It is.
Like, who governs it? And there's a lot of.
And again, you're putting your information there, right?
Yeah.
But how do you know who's really seeing all this information?
You don't. And so when they have a breach, they always say there's a breach. Okay, well, who was it?
Right.
Should I be concerned about the breach? I mean, of course I should be concerned, but should I be really concerned? What are they going to do with it? What else are they going to take? Once they have that, then what?
Right.
Yeah. Fuck. So she didn't have her identity stolen or anything?
Not that we're aware of.
Yeah, not yet. Knock on wood. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Just a little fun fact, though, I did see over the weekend. Did you know that the average horse weighs 1,000 pounds, but has a 20-inch dick, which is for 1 inch for every 50 pounds. So if a 200-pound man has a 4-inch dick, he's considered hung like a horse. That's actually encouraging.
That is.
I know that's encouraging for me because I know I'm better than the average.
So speaking of Chinese things.
All right, thanks for joining us on this week's Trending Headlines. If you're thinking about maybe putting a sponsor on top of Jay and I, that would be great. We'd love to talk to you. But stay tuned for next week's Trending Headlines.